It starts with a number in a bank account, or on a bill, or a date on a calendar when the rent is due. But it doesn't stay there. It moves. It seeps out of the spreadsheet and into the body. It becomes a tightness in the shoulders that arrives every Sunday night. It becomes the habit of checking the price of everything, not once but twice, even when you don't need to. It becomes the way you walk through a grocery store, your eyes skipping over entire aisles, your mind already calculating, subtracting, before you even reach the register. This is the first lesson of prolonged hardship. It is not an event. It is a climate, a weather system you learn to live inside. Your mind begins to map the world in terms of risk and stability, of threat and safety. A sudden noise isn't just a noise. It's a potential problem, and a problem is a potential cost. Your senses sharpen to the tremors in your environment. You can hear the hesitation in someone's voice when they talk about money. You can see the slight wear on a product that means it might break sooner. You become a diagnostician of scarcity. Your relationship with control becomes absolute and deeply personal. It's in the precise stacking of coupons, in the meticulous plan for a week's meals where nothing can be wasted. It's in the silent, internal rehearsal of conversations with a landlord or a boss. This control is not about power over others. It's a desperate, vital engineering of a small, fragile world to keep it from collapsing. It's the only way to breathe when the air feels thin. And with this comes a new kind of time. The future shrinks and hardens. It becomes the next paycheck, the next due date. Long-term dreams feel like a luxury, a distant country you no longer have a visa to visit. You live in a narrow, urgent present, because that's all you can afford to hold in your mind. The past, meanwhile, becomes a catalog of close calls and near misses. You remember the times the math almost didn't work, and the visceral animal relief when it did. This shapes a person. It trains them. Their humor gets drier, sharper, a tool to deflect pity or to cut the tension of a difficult conversation. Their patience for chaos is strangely high, because they've had to function inside so much of it. But their ability to relax is broken. True rest feels like a lapse in security, a dropping of the guard. Even in moments of quiet, there's a part of them that is still listening, still calculating, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. If you recognize this climate, if you've lived inside this weather, you're not alone. Many of us have maps of the world drawn in this same ink. Feel free to share a thought in the comments below. Sometimes just naming the pattern is the first step to understanding it. The body keeps the score, they say, but the mind keeps the budget. And it's a budget that includes items most people never see. The cost of uncertainty, the price of a risk, the tax on peace of mind. This is the invisible architecture built by scarcity. It's not just a financial state, it's a psychological one. A way of being that, once learned, is not easily unlearned. Because when you've been cold for a very long time, you don't just feel the temperature, you anticipate it. You build your entire life around the memory of that chill. Safety stops being a feeling. It becomes a calculation, a sum of variables. How much is in the emergency fund? What is the health of the car's tires? How many months of rent could be covered if everything stopped today? For someone shaped by scarcity, security is not an abstract concept of well-being. It is a concrete, measurable fortress they must build, brick by brick, with whatever they can find. This changes how they move through space. A room is assessed for exits, but also for value. A social gathering is scanned for potential obligations that might carry a hidden cost. A gift is received with a silent, immediate mental calculation of the appropriate reciprocal value, a debt of gratitude that feels as real as a financial one. They develop a radar for instability in others, because instability is contagious, and they cannot afford to catch it. Their empathy is often profound, but it is specific. They can spot the subtle signs of someone else's struggle from a mile away. The too careful phrasing about a job, the worn-down shoes polished to look new, the hesitation before ordering the slightly more expensive coffee. This empathy isn't just emotional, it's practical. It comes with a mental list of solutions, of workarounds, of quiet ways to help without embarrassing the other person. They know the weight of pride, and they know how to step around it. But this same sensitivity makes vulnerability feel dangerous. To admit a need, to ask for help, is to expose a weak point in the fortress. It requires a level of trust that feels enormous and risky. So they become extremely independent, sometimes to a fault. "I'll figure it out" is not just a statement, it's a survival mantra. They learn to fix things, to jury-rig solutions, to make do. The thought of relying on another person, of being a burden, can trigger a deep, almost primal anxiety. This creates a unique loneliness. They can be surrounded by people yet feel separate because they are carrying a hidden operating manual that others don't use. They laugh at a party, but a part of them is monitoring the time, the cost of the ride home, the social capital being spent. They might achieve stability, even comfort, but the internal alarms installed during the lean years remain active. A financial windfall doesn't immediately bring joy. It brings a new series of calculations about investment, preservation, and potential future loss. Their relationship with money is never neutral. It is a character in their life story, an antagonist, a demanding teacher, sometimes a temporary ally. A simple transaction isn't just an exchange of currency for goods. It's a small ritual where past fears meet present security. The act of saving money isn't about future luxury. It's about buying distance from a past version of themselves that was terrified and exposed. This is the paradox. The very mechanisms that help them survive, the hypervigilance, the control, the fierce independence, can become the walls that make peace difficult to find. They built a system to keep danger out, and sometimes that system also keeps calm out. The mind, trained in the economics of emergency, struggles to accept the balance sheet of peace. It is always auditing, always checking, waiting for the mistake it's sure it must have made. Because in the world they come from, safety was never a given. It was a project, and the project is never fully complete. There is a specific kind of humor that grows in this soil. It's dark, direct, and often deployed as a shield. It's the joke about eating rice and beans for the third night in a row, the wry observation about patching clothes with dental floss. It serves two masters, it diffuses the tension of a hard situation, and it signals to others that you are still okay, still in control, even when you are not. It says, I see the absurdity of this, and I am above it. But really, it's a way of breathing underwater. This humor is a language. Those who have lived through similar things recognize its cadence immediately. It's not the humor of a carefree joke, it's the humor of a shared scar. It creates instant, silent bonds with strangers in waiting rooms or break rooms who laugh a little too knowingly at a comment about overdue bills. It's a way of saying, I see you, without ever having to say the difficult parts out loud. But beneath that practiced, practical exterior, there is often a quiet, persistent grief. It's not a dramatic mourning, it's a low hum of loss for a lighter version of oneself. The person who could say yes to a spontaneous invitation without a 5-step financial and logistical review. The person who could receive a generous gift with simple joy instead of a complex wave of gratitude, guilt, and calculation. The person who could look at the future and see possibility, not just liability. They grieve for the mental space that was consumed by survival math, the hours spent worrying that could have been spent creating, or resting, or simply being bored. There is a faint envy for people who seem to move through the world with a natural, unearned trust in its stability. That trust feels like a superpower they were never granted. This duality becomes a permanent part of their inner landscape. One moment, they are the strongest person in the room, solving problems, making tough decisions, weathering storms with a steady hand. The next, they might be paralyzed by a small, unexpected expense. Not because they can't afford it, but because it triggers the old alarm system. The system that screams, breach in the wall, pattern of danger. This is how it starts. They can be incredibly generous, often to their own detriment because they know the exact weight of need. But they can also struggle to accept generosity because it feels like accepting a debt they may not be able to repay. Their strength is real. Their resilience is forged steel, but so is their tenderness, and it is often hidden in the hardest-to-reach places, protected by all those layers of practical defense. This is the human contradiction shaped by hardship. They are both the strategist who can plan their way out of anything, and the wounded animal that startles at a sudden sound. They carry a deep wisdom about the fragility of things, and a deep fatigue from having to be the one who constantly holds those fragile things together. The laughter and the grief are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin, minted in the same difficult season. One is shown to the world. The other is carried in silence, a private memory of what was traded away for the strength to endure. A strange transition happens when the external crisis passes. The money might stabilize, the debts might be paid, the safety net might finally be woven. But the internal system, the survival psychology, does not simply switch off. It was built for a war, and when the war ends, it becomes a peacetime army, still drilling, still patrolling the borders of a country that is no longer under immediate threat. This is the new normal. It looks like stability from the outside, but from the inside, it is a constant, low-level negotiation between the past and the present. You might have a comfortable savings account, but you still feel a jolt of anxiety when you buy a full-price item. You might have a secure job, but you still read your employment contract 3 times, looking for the clause that could undo you. Your friends see a responsible, prudent person. You feel like a sentry who can't remember the password to stand down. Relaxation becomes a skill you have to relearn, and it often feels like a betrayal of your old self. To sit still, to do nothing productive, to spend money on something purely for joy, these acts can trigger a sense of guilt or danger. The part of you that kept you alive whispers that this is how you get soft. This is how you lose your edge. This is how you wake up one day and find the walls have crumbled again. Relationships are filtered through this old lens. You might choose partners not for passion, but for perceived stability. You might push away kindness because it feels unfamiliar and therefore suspect. You might struggle to share financial decisions because handing over any control feels like handing over the codes to your survival. Your love can be deeply loyal, fiercely protective, but it can also come with manuals and contingency plans that your partner never asked for. The world feels different. You understand the mechanics of systems in a way others might not. You know which offices to call, which forms to fill out, how to speak to a customer service representative to get a fee waived. You have a PhD in navigating bureaucracy from the School of Hard Knocks. This knowledge is power, but it's a power born from powerlessness. And there is a lingering sadness for the person you might have been. The one who wasn't pre-programmed with worst-case scenarios. The one whose first instinct is trust, not verification. You watch people make what you see as reckless, joyful choices, and you feel a mix of bewilderment and a faint, wistful longing. You don't want their recklessness, but you wish you could borrow just a little of their lightness. This is the lasting imprint. The hardship ends, but the adaptation remains. It becomes your posture, your instinct, your first language. You are fluent in the dialect of scarcity long after you've left the country where it's spoken. The fear of going back is sometimes stronger than the satisfaction of having left. So you keep building, fortifying, watching the horizon. Not because you have to, but because you now know how. And knowing how is a form of safety in itself. It is the one thing you believe that can never be taken from you. This is not a story about damage. It is a story about adaptation. The behaviors, the thoughts, the quiet alarms, they were not signs of a broken mind. They were the ingenious, desperate, brilliant solutions of a mind trying to solve an impossible problem. How to stay alive in every sense of the word with not enough. There is a dignity in this pattern, a profound logic. The hypervigilance was a radar system that scanned for threats to your survival. The need for control was an attempt to build a small island of order in a sea of chaos. The difficulty with trust was a rational response to a world that had proven itself unreliable. The dark humor was a pressure valve. The intense empathy was a map of the world drawn from your own coordinates of pain. When you understand it this way, you can begin to separate the strength from the scar. The strength is your resilience, your resourcefulness, your deep understanding of value, your ability to endure. These are gifts forged in the fire. The scar is the involuntary flinch, the automatic suspicion, the grief for a lighter life, the inability to turn off the engine of calculation. These are not flaws. They are the echoes of the fire. The goal is not to erase this history. It is to become its curator. To acknowledge that the sentry is part of you, but not all of you. To thank it for its service, and then slowly to negotiate a peace treaty. To sometimes say, I see the risk. I have calculated it. And in this instance, we are safe. You can stand down for an hour. It means allowing yourself small acts of deliberate trust. Letting someone else pay for coffee without mentally recording the debt. Buying the slightly better thing because you like it, not just because it will last longer. Sitting for 10 minutes with no task, no plan, just the quiet understanding that this moment does not need to be monetized or optimized. It is the long, gentle work of teaching your nervous system a new definition of normal. It won't happen quickly. The old pathways are well worn. But every time you choose calm over calculation when the situation allows it, you are building a new road. Your past has given you a unique lens. You see the infrastructure of life that others take for granted. You understand the cost of things in a currency beyond money. This lens can be a burden, but it can also be a form of wisdom. It allows you to build things that are truly solid, to offer help that is truly practical, to appreciate stability with a depth that those who have never lost it can never fully know. If this story resonates with you, if you see your own reflection in this pattern of adaptation, consider staying with us. Subscribing to the channel and tapping that notification bell is a simple way to ensure you don't miss the next conversation. We talk about the hidden architectures of our lives, the ways our past shapes our present, always with respect for the strength it took to get here. Your history of scarcity did not just take things from you, it also built things in you. A formidable attention, a relentless practicality, a deep, unsentimental empathy. The task now is not to dismantle that fortress, but to learn how to open the gate, to walk outside into the sunlight, and know that you can always go back inside. But you might not need to. Not today. The war for now is over, and you are still here, not just surviving, but learning, slowly, what it means to live.